Good morning, my lovely honeys. Hello, rise and shine. It's currently 10 o'clock in the morning for me. I don't know what time it is for you, but if you're watching this in the morning while you're getting up, or you're watching this while you eat something, or do a craft, or you're working, or you're exercising, anything, hello. I hope you're having a wonderful time. I know you're doing great. Keep up the good work. Welcome to The Middle Sister. I'm Sphira, your podcast host, and this is the podcast where we talk about anything and everything in this season of summer after high school, where we're just figuring it out one chapter at a time. Welcome, all old honey bunnies and new honey bunnies. Um, it's been quite an adventure. It's been about I think 2 weeks since my last podcast episode, and the posting time of my podcast season this season has been so horrible. Like, it's been so erratic. I'm so sorry. Um the truth is, life has been getting very hectic for me and kind of like kicking me while I'm down. So I haven't been having the best time, but I'm trying to get back into it and make sure everything's going smoothly and trying to get to this like Tuesday, Friday posting I created for myself, which I'm not really thinking past me for right now, but I'm getting it back together. But I finally had some time this morning to sit down and film an episode with you guys. And I wanted to talk about something that's been weighing heavily on my mind lately, which is this conversation I had with my dad the other day. Now, when I say a conversation I had with my dad the other day, just like a little bit of background information before I get into this story, the conversations me and my dad have are like genuinely like sometimes I feel like outsiders look at our conversations and are like, "What the heck?" Because we don't talk about normal stuff. Like, we talk about like the most outrageous things ever. Okay, so anyways, what had happened was I got a Filofax for my birthday, right? This is just background information. I got a Filofax for my birthday. I was in my mom's room on her computer, like divvying up some Filofax sheets on ChatGPT because I was too lazy to create them myself because I had already went through a whole set of like decorative ones that I created myself on Adobe on my iPad, and then they didn't print right and I printed them wrong and I got mad. So I was like, okay, ChatGPT to the rescue. So anyways, I was creating these pages on the computer and printing them in my parents' room because their whole entire setup is in their room. So I was on like my dad's side of the room. So the way their room is like you walk in and then you have their big bed, right? And then on this side is their bathroom and my mom's side, and then on this side is like my mom's office area and then my dad's side. And so my mom's office area is where I was on the computer chair on the computer printing out my pages with the printer, right? Minding my own beeswax, okay? And my dad comes in there obviously because it's his room and he's laying down and he's just like sitting there, right? And my dad, like, throughout the years of him going through his religious journey with his relationship with God, we've had a lot of bickering moments where we disagree on things. And often when he's feeling down in his relationship and walk with God, he'll resort to somebody to like talk about what's weighing on his mind. And a lot of times it ends up being me or my grandpa. I was sitting in the chair and my dad comes in and he's looking at me and he's like, "Man, I just can't believe I have codependency."
What?
What? And I was like, what do you mean you have codependent? You don't, that's not something you, I mean, it's something you have, but it's not something you have as if it's a diagnosis, brother. What are you talking about? And so he was like, because I was like, I was talking with this person and they were telling me I'm codependent. And I'm sitting here and I'm like confused, right? Now, no tea, no shade to my dad, but my dad does not have the highest smarts.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
Okay. And so he's sitting there and he's talking to me about this codependency. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, like," he was explaining it as something it completely wasn't. He was like, "Oh, yeah, I have codependency and it's why I want to help people all the time and why I can't let go of things." I feel like we need a dictionary. Because what? I was like, "Dad." I was like, "Dad, what do you think codependency is, Father? Like genuinely, let's dig deep into this dictionary right now. What do you think codependency is? And he was like, well, codependency is when you want to help somebody so much and you don't want to do anything else but help that person. Who finna tell him? Who finna tell him? I was like, Dad, no, that's not what codependency is. I was like, let me just open up Google right now, do a quick little search, and show you what real codependency is, okay? And so, mind you, it was funny to me because my dad is and can be codependent, but he's not codependent right now. So I was so confused and I was just laughing at him. And so I look it up right now. For those of you who off the top of your head don't recognize codependency, like it's okay because sometimes I don't either. So I'm just gonna read the definition just so we're all on the same page here, okay? Codependency. I have it on my phone right here. Codependency is an unhealthy relationship pattern where one person sacrifices their own needs, places total focus on fixing or pleasing another person, and ties their self worth to being needed, right? Okay, so my dad's sitting here and he's like, it's when I just like, I help somebody and I don't want to do anything but help that person. It's like, Dad, that's not what that is. I was like, okay, first of all, you don't do that because when you want to help somebody, you say it's in the name of God and you get upset because you want to do it for God and you think it's right. And that's not what codependency is. It's like codependency is when you're depending on somebody and you have to be there because you like the definition said. I was explaining it to him. I was like, you can be codependent. You've been codependent on mom before. And he was like, what? Me? Codependent? You just said you had codependency. I was like, yes, you have been codependent in moments, like with mom, like when it came to you not working and you not having anything. And so I was like, but that's not what you have. Whatever somebody's telling you is not codependency. And so he was like getting all confused and his brain was like running a mile a minute because I had just corrected him and now he's like lost thinking that he's diagnosed with something and he has no idea what it is. And so I was like, okay, let me go into Google. Look it up for him, right? Look up what he thinks he has, right? Cuz my dad is he's one of those people you encounter who is in a relationship walk and they feel like every person that comes to them and says I need help, they need to help them because God brought them in their life to help them. Every single person. It doesn't matter if it's a homeless person, if it's somebody with money, they have more than us, less than us, anything. If they say I need help, my dad's name, insert my dad's name, I need help, Saphira's dad, like he will go and help them. He'll get so upset if he can't help them. And he's like, well, I don't understand why you guys are stopping me from going to help somebody. Like, the Lord wants me to help people. Like, he'll always do that. Okay. Now, that's not codependency. And I was telling him, I was like, that's not codependency. And so I went into Google and I had looked it up. I was like, what is it when someone who almost wants to help somebody does it all the time and says it's in the name of God, even if it like negatively affects others, right? Because everyone in my family has gotten into arguments with him about helping people because sometimes he will put the important things in our family below helping somebody else, okay? And like for an example of like things he does that with, because it's not just helping people, it's like going to church, listening to sermons. He'll always pick the wrong time to do it sometimes. And an example of this would be like on my I think it was like the day of my graduation party or something. My dad knew the day was like hectic and we needed the car in the morning. We needed to do stuff. Like everyone was on a tight schedule because it was the day of my graduation party and he really wanted to go to church. And we all told him, you can't physically go to church this morning. Like, we need you here. You need to be helping us. Like, we need help. Like, you need to stay here. There's sermons on in the room. We've got speakers. We've got phones. You can bring it out here. Nobody's saying you can't listen to it in front of everybody. Like, mind you, and my parents listened to sermons day in and day out in this household, right? But that day, he just did not want to put on a sermon. He didn't want to compromise with anybody. And so we would sent him to the store. We said, Dad, go to the store and get this and this and that, right? My dad left the house, said he was going to the store, and instead of going to the store, went to church and stayed at church and then went to the store. That's a prime example of the moment I'm talking about with him. Like when he gets to that point, like that's that point. Like you knew you had to be home for my graduation party and we told you we needed help. and you still went to church anyways. Okay, so like that's an example of what he's talking about, right? And so I look it up, right? We go through this whole deep dive of what we think he has, and we come down to the fact that he thinks he has a messiah complex. Well, I, for one, when I was looking this up, I knew of people like this who like had something like this, but I never knew what it was called and like the definition of it. Okay, now I have it up on my phone right now. It says a messiah complex is a state of mind where a person firmly believes they are destined to be savior, prophet, or rescuer. These are the characteristics I read to him when I was looking this up because they're right here underneath the definition. These are some of them. Thinking you are uniquely chosen to save the world or fix major issues, seeking praise, power, or a stronger sense of self worth through helping others, pushing past healthy boundaries and neglecting your own basic needs. I was explaining that to him, and he was like, dude, that's what I have. That's what I have. Like, I totally have that. I totally do that. Right? Goes into this whole deep dive, and he's like, I have a messiah complex now. Okay, yes, we looked it up and you feel like you have it, but that doesn't mean you actually have it. Like, you're not diagnosed with it. Like, you're just assuming you have this problem. Because then, once I had looked up the whole problem and he figured out what it was, he was like, no, look up how to fix that thing, how to reverse it. Why are you trying to look up to reverse how to reverse something that you don't know you really have? What? I'm confused. So I went through this whole conversation with him, and at the end, it really made me like think. Like it weighed on my mind pretty heavily because I felt like we all get to this point or we all have a moment where we put ourselves in a category that we're not because we feel like that's where we belong. Almost like we're belittling ourselves to fit into a category or to fit someone's interpretation of us. And that's how I felt with my dad because my dad does this pretty often where he like thinks something's wrong with him or he'll like try to look up if there's something wrong with the way he's thinking or the way he handles things or whatever. And a lot of times he'll come back with saying like somebody told him something or somebody made him think that he has something, or like for an example, sometimes he'll go to my grandpa's house when he's feeling like this and he'll come back with something like, oh, my dad said this and this and this and I have this and now I have to fix this and I gotta get in my bible and read about this. Like he'll get on like that whole like track of those thoughts, and it made me just like really think. And for him it was like a religious aspect of like how he treats people when it comes to helping others, like, and he was trying to fit himself into a category of codependency, and he wasn't codependent. He was trying to make himself something he wasn't, and he was really adamant about it is like what caught my attention because when he was saying that he had codependency and he was codependent, like he was saying it like full confidence, like he knew down to the last letter in the word that he was codependent. And I just like I thought about it and I was like, he was so confident that he had this like small title of himself when really he didn't, and he's so much more than that. He's not codependent at all. I was like confused because it's like, why are you putting yourself in this small category, in this small definition of something when you're not that at all? Like I don't get it, you know? And then like when all of that was causing me to think, it made me think of something that I go through personally with trying to fit myself in a smaller category. And this is something completely different from my dad. But it goes to show that we all have a moment like this. And for me, it isn't anything with work, school, environment. It has to do with my name. And this is something that I often don't like sharing because I don't like my middle name, but my middle name is Peyton. Okay. I, for the longest time, I despised that middle name, and I have a lot of reasons I despise it, but the biggest one I despised it for was on my mom's side of the family. I'm of Mexican heritage, and every female in my mom's family has the middle name Marie. Even my mother. Every single girl on the side of the family has the middle name Marie. And I was the first girl on my mom's side of the family to not have the middle name Marie. And I got really upset about it growing up because I wanted to be a part of my family. I felt like I wasn't, like a part of their name because I didn't have their middle name. So I didn't have Marie, I had Peyton. And for the longest time, I would go around telling people that my middle name was Marie, and I wouldn't let people see my middle name. I wouldn't show them my ID. I wouldn't show them my license. I wouldn't show them my birth certificate. I wouldn't show them anything that had my full name on it, so that they didn't know my middle name wasn't Marie. It was Peyton. And when I had this whole conversation with my dad, it made me think like all these years I've wanted to change my middle name because for the longest time I would tell everybody that when I got to 18 and I had the money, I was legally going to change my middle name to Marie. Um and when I had this conversation with my dad, it made me think like why do I want to put myself in a smaller category with my family just to be a part of them when I don't even talk to that family. I don't even like communicate with that family. I don't get along with that family. A lot of that family just argues and don't even talk to me actually. So like why do I want to put myself in a category that doesn't fit for me, you know? Like I'm nothing like those people on my mom's side of the family. I'm something completely different. And if I gave myself the middle name Marie, I wouldn't be that different from them. But if I keep the middle name Peyton, I'm staying true to myself and I'm keeping myself in the category that I belong in rather than minimizing myself to fit with my family members, if that makes sense. Like if you're kikiing the way I'm kikiing in my head, like that's how I was looking at it. It was like, my dad was struggling fitting himself in this whole codependency circle, and I've been struggling putting myself in this whole Marie middle name circle because yes, I argued all the time about having the middle name Marie, but now when I'm looking at it, I feel like I'm so glad my middle name is Peyton because it doesn't minimize myself and make me feel like I'm a part of that family because I'm not a part of that family with my middle name, you know? I'm something completely different. And for the longest time, I wanted to fit myself in that category. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be the same as them. And now when I look at it, I'm like, why do I want to be the same as somebody else when I could be somebody completely different and better? You know? So it was just like an eye opener for me with that conversation with my dad. And I feel like I needed to have it to look at my middle name the way I look at it now. Because if you would have asked me like 3 weeks ago, a month ago, a year ago, like how I felt about my middle name, I would tell you I hate my middle name and I want to change my middle name. I don't like it. My mom didn't give me the family middle name. I want the family middle name, is what I would say to you. But if you were to ask me right now today how I feel about my middle name, I would say my middle name is uniquely different from my family. And I would say that I'm happy to have it as much as I've gone through the years like belittling my middle name and like telling bad stories about it. So I like I feel like I've grown a new admiration for my middle name, and I feel like that's just really like wholesome and lovey to me because in all my life I never thought that I was gonna like my middle name Peyton. But here I am today and I low key like I'm learning to like it. I'm learning to love it differently because it's my middle name. And I wasn't blessed with the family middle name. I was blessed with something different, you know? So yeah, like the conversation with my dad just made me really look at things in a different perspective of like why we're trying to encourage ourselves to be in this smaller category, you know? And I don't think that's something that we should do. And I don't have a lot of examples right now of people doing that besides the conversation I had with my dad because it is something new that I've encountered that I'm like getting a new perspective on like right now. So maybe in the future I'll have more examples to refer back to on. But for those of you listening and pulling from this episode, don't belittle yourself. Don't make yourself smaller and put yourself in a category where you don't belong. If you feel like you're trying so hard to put yourself in a category that you're the complete opposite, you don't belong in that category. Because for the longest time, I thought that I wanted the middle name Marie to belong in that family category, but now I don't want to belong in that category at all. I'd much rather be something that's just me that I created myself in a category of my own, away from people, you know? Like away from different categories that don't suit me. So don't put yourself in a category that isn't fit for you. Okay? Like I saw this quote the other day on TikTok and it was um putting the wrong rib in your cage will fill the hole but will cause an infection or something like that. I may have quoted it wrong, but it was something like that, and it stuck to me because yes, it is a religious quote talking about Adam and Eve, but it can go for many different things. Don't put a piece of yourself, don't take a piece of something else and put it in you thinking that it's going to complete you and it's has nothing to do with you at all. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. That is horrible because that'll just cause you to have an infection, like the quote says. And it takes a long time to get rid of infections. And you don't want to have an infection to get rid of. You'd rather just stay clean. Okay? So don't put yourself in smaller categories. That's not what we should be doing to ourselves. We should be loving ourselves and making ourselves dream big and go into these bigger categories where we can prosper and grow and bloom into these amazing things and not belittling ourselves and making ourselves feel like we're something we're not. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lovely conversation we had today. This is a rather shorter episode, like my last episode. If you got to the end of this episode and you did enjoy this episode with me today, how do you feel about the shorter episodes? How do you feel about the longer episodes? Comment down below and I will, move accordingly. But I hope you guys had a lovely talk with your middle sister today. I hope you guys got some sort of insight from this conversation. I know I did. Um, I hope you guys have a lovely morning, a lovely rest of your day, a lovely night if you're going to sleep. Lots of kisses. I love you, honey bunnies. So I'll see you in episode 4.